Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics round review. We're recording live on Sunday night, the 1st of June, after completion of round 12. The first of the bye weeks are in the books, a lot of interesting things to come out this week. A lot of low scores, some big scores, and we had a big bad Baz ending the round with a massive score with a lot of people having the C on him. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And joining me, as always, is one of my co-hosts and fellow AFL Fantasy Fanatics, is Jordy DeSena. Jordy, mate, how are you?
Good, mate. Got to catch up with you yesterday. Came down to, the District Bar in Adelaide, which was great to see you. So, had a good weekend and keen to chat about it all.
Exactly right, mate. Yeah, no, it was a weird weekend, but it was good, particularly on Saturday night. Obviously catching up with you and I saw Louis and Hef and a few other guys there as well. But it's also good to see the Crowies get a big win. So that was nice. But we will get stuck straight into how we went this week. Being late for a lot of people watching this live, and if you are watching on the replay, then appreciate you guys tuning in as well. But Jordy, how did you go in round 12? What was your score, your round rank, and your overall rank?
So I scored 19-17. I can't see my round rank yet, I think, because it still hasn't.
If you go, the way to see it is if you go to like rankings and you just sort by round 12, and it will just show what you rank on the app. That'll
brilliant.
be how you see it. So I've taught Guesty and Jordox the way, so you've been taught as well.
Yep. So round rank of 405, and my overall rank is at 150 now.
Wow.
So I've come up 200 spots, 202 spots this week, which is nice.
Yeah, massive. That's the first time I've heard what you scored, because I deliberately wanted to know in the pod how you went, because you said massive week, and I was like, okay, I'll find it on the pod. Massive week, mate, and congrats on moving right into the mix, right just outside the top 100. Positive for me. I've got a 4-digit rank again. That is something in itself. Moved up about 2,000 spots, scored an 1803. That was a round rank of 6575. So also good to have a 4-digit round rank as well. So not too bad. Thought might have been a little bit bigger before last night's game. But yeah, a few lower scores, unfortunately, in the last couple of games. Probably didn't mean I had as big a week as I could have there. But still happy to have a 4-digit ranking. We move on to next week. Plus and minus 3, Jordy. Who are you giving that to this week?
Oh, there's been some real big scores. I think I'm going to give my +3 to Luke Jackson again.
The unicorn.
The unicorn. I was expecting.
Safe to say I heard about him a lot yesterday when we caught up.
It's probably going on about it too much. I mean, a lot of people were saying about the Wits matchup and it's going to be bad, but we saw him play ruck and then as a midfielder, which was unreal. It's a score 116. I had Taser he's come on the show before, but he was saying to me, Jackson's going to drop out of my scores with my 20 dots with Darcy back. So to get a 116, I'll give him the +3. And yeah, Taser, I don't know, maybe might be an option now to trade him in.
He's all good old Taser needs to keep saying that, because he played well. So no, we love Taser, and I'm sure we'll hear from him over the next few weeks. -3 for you?
-3. So, geez, we had some real low ones. Hey, I mean, Bias's 9 is not great, but that one luckily didn't count. It's hard because the ones that are low, I've taken out of my score. So my lowest one that did count, look, let's just give it to, it's probably a bit harsh to give it a rookie. Oh, you know what? We'll give it to Isaac Rankin, a 63 from a top forward in a bye run that we need him. And a big win for the Crows. I think I was expecting a little bit more. So let's give him to that. Might be a bit harsh, but I'll go with that.
No, it's not harsh at all. No, I'm fully on board with that. My +3, look, shout out to Shea Bolton with a 102. That was pretty nice. It's unique to get that ton there. And also Kyle Lohman on the Thursday with a 79. And also Baz as the skipper. But I did say this in a few group chats. If this guy turned up, I was giving him a +3 no matter what he scored. And my +3 goes to Nasiah Wanganeen Miller. What an absolute gun this guy is. So Also not going to mention about bloody that stupid idiot Johnson from Melbourne. What an absolute stupid thing to do to try and take out our boy. All of the people that own the side know exactly what I'm talking about. He's our boy, right? It's taken out by Johnson. We're all going, great. 21, probably going to be concussed and ruled out. Came on with like 40 seconds to go in the second quarter. When it's like, I was surprised he came back on. Then he got a kick as well in that time. And then what I'm trying to get here, so he was on, so 22, what's that? So he had a 21. He had a 96-point second half. That is just ridiculous. The last quarter, he had like 15 touches. All of them were kicks. It was just piggery at its finest. Absolutely love it. And he gets on +3, not only for the big score, but also the fact of coming back out and playing as well as he did. He might have probably booked in a tag or two with the way he played, but I don't care. I'm pretty happy with that score. -3. Look, I'm going to give it to everyone in that game last night, the Crows game. Crows fan, very happy to win, right? But I had 5 players in that game, not one ton. So Jordan Dawson, 86. A little bit disappointed with that, considering the Crows won by so much. He didn't really get that much of a tag. He got a little bit of attention, but not a lot. Don't get me started on Riley Bice. That guy's gone. He could be playing the under-12s from a local footy club this week. He's still traded for me. I don't care. Matt Roberts is probably one that is fine. He probably gets the pass there. And then Isaac Rankin with a 63. And then Chad Warner on debut with a 74. I didn't expect Warner to go well against the Crows. He might get a 90. I just did it was for the buys. I only had 2 prems on the round 14 buy. I thought I'd bring him in, and he put a dud. So I'm hope he needs to go 120 plus against Richmond to make the pick really worth it. Just turning our attention quick to the Content Creators Cup, proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth. Obviously, Guesty's company there, and we have some big movers in the overall ranks this week. So Louis, 101st. He got the unlucky mug at the moment, but he's just outside the top. I think he moved up like maybe 2 spots or something like that. So
2 spots, yeah.
He's going along very nicely, 101. Holmesy making a really big move now. He's up to 107. So he is going along very, very nicely. Jepper's now up to 355th. Lemons up to 399. You got Nathan is 488, and he is now going to hear about on the Hatchet Pod. He's the best coach on the pod in terms of rankings. So shout out to Nathan there. DC 853rd as well. MJ just outside the top 1,000. And then also should shout out our very own Guesty. I'm not sure if he's going to jump on tonight because he's heading back from the game. So whether we hear from him or not, but he had a massive week. With an 1890. So he's very, very happy. He's moved into a pretty good rank. We'll wait for him either tonight or Tuesday to let him know where he's ranked. But in terms of matchups for the Fantasy Fanatics this week, so Jaiden had a bit of a tough week this week, 1684, went down to Nathan with an 1851. Guesty beat Mini Monk by 45 points, 1890 to 1845. Then you had I went down to Louis by 31 points. Should have brought in bloody Sinclair. Would have won that bloody matchup. But Louis gets the job done there. And then Jordox, unfortunately, he had a tough week as well. 1668 went down to Jepper, who had a massive one with a 1910. He was beaten Holmesy, who went a 1940. So Holmesy had a 40-odd round rank last week, and he's probably going to have obviously what your round rank is. So he is absolutely flying at the moment.
Yeah, what did he score this week again?
1913.
Yeah. So, yeah, probably be about 400, 500 for the week, which is unreal.
So he is absolutely smashing it at the moment. So shout out to all the people going well there, because I'm certainly struggling in the Content Creators Cup. But let's go and recap all of the... Actually, no, before we do, I thought I'd just say this on the pod because I got it here. Came first out of the experts for the captains this week. Pretty happy with that. We're captain going along very nicely, up to 4th overall. For captains for the season. I'm certainly catching Mitch right in his heels, so we'll see how that goes there. But yeah, very, very good, happy with how the captains have gone. At least something has gone well for me this year. But let's move over to the games and recap Thursday night. So it feels like ages ago. Brisbane and Eston. Eston going pretty well there, but Brisbane winning in the end by 18 points. And Hugh McCluggage, 152. He was absolutely massive. Along with Will Ashcroft, who was pretty good as well with a 102. And you also had Dunkley, 82, and Lockie Neal, 81. But Joe, the reason I said those first four, saying other scores, is that are you concerned with the Brisbane midfield at the moment, particularly Dunkley, right? So I'm looking at the guys here, right? So McCluggage has been really good and has been putting up some decent scores, but I feel like these four guys, one week, two of them are going to go well. Next week, another two are going to go well. I don't feel like they're all consistent. And like Dunkley has had a number of scores below 100 now in the last 6 or 7 weeks. Are you just maybe passing on these lines mids at the moment? I know obviously they've got a bye coming up, so obviously we're not looking at them in the meantime anyway. But are you slightly concerned moving forward for the Brisbane Mids just because they're sharing it around so much?
I think that's probably a good point is about that is they can't obviously all pop per game. But it was only a few weeks ago that Dunkley was the top rated midfielder. He would have been the highest averaging midfielder ahead of Dawson. And now obviously he's come back a little bit. And I think Dawson's still up there. I'll have to check that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is something that you have to be slight worry. I still think Dunkley is probably a top 8 mid, but maybe he's not, at the top echelon of, M1, M2 anymore. Maybe he's just in that mix. And, maybe you're going to have weeks where a Hugh McCluggage goes big and Dunkley doesn't, or maybe Dunkley goes big and Hugh's back to the pack. So, obviously there's only so much ball that can go around, but I think he's still a top 8.
What about McCluggage? He's smashing out some really good scores. I'm a draft owner and I'm pretty happy with the way that he's gone this year. Is he an option, or do you think that because of how well he's been playing, he's maybe the guy that could get some attention now and maybe I don't know what his price will be, but I think he'll be starting to get up there in price.
It's funny, I listened to the commentary a little bit, and Hugh McCluggage has always been in this All-Australian squad not the last couple of years, but he's definitely been in there a few times. But he's never made the All-Australian squad. And I know I was listening, and Kane Corns, he's on the panel, and he was like, he's making a real case to make All-Australian this year. So maybe he is taking just that little extra step. And we've seen him go at 100 before. He's going at 104 now. Can he keep doing this?
That's well inside the top 8 mids based on the way that season's going.
And I think with Hugh McCluggage, every year we see him go on a bit of a hot patch and he can put some massive scores up. So I definitely wouldn't write it off. I think, and he's obviously, what is he owned? It'd be a very good pod, 2.6% owned. I think we have to keep an eye on him for sure, because he could be a really good pod. And I love to get a pod, I think, as you know, Bales. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's going to be well over $1 million. So it's like he's expensive now. And as we did say, you're probably looking at targeting mostly those round 12 buy players now. So it is a bit tricky to look at bringing some of these guys in, but we will talk about a few. But one that you potentially could move on to. So Nick Martin was great, 116. He's killing. He's going to be 1.1 million now. He's going absolutely nuts. But can you bring in Jai Caldwell? He's gone at 128. He went 128 this week, and 120 last week. And I heard Mitch and Luke talking about it on, was it their Patreon pod or the Friday lockout or whatever, saying that there's like a 16-game sample size of I think it's when he goes over 75% game time or something like that, that he's averaging 110 in that time frame. And it's a pretty big average. And if he's doing that, he's never going to get tagged with merit there. And Martin's ahead of him as well in that sort of tagging sort of order. Can you bring him in? He's a cheap price. He's got the last buy. If you're light on premiums in that buy, can you do it? Or are you still looking at guys coming off the buy and you're just not entertaining any premium option that's got a buy coming up?
I think you could probably do it because, if you're looking at those buy players, obviously Bont is going to be a big one we want this week, but he is quite pricey. And if you can't get there, are you looking at a Butters range? But Butters might have a Bedford tag this week. So maybe you go, okay, for around that price, I'll go a Caldwell. The thing to know about Thursday night was Merritt played behind the ball and he had 7 kickouts. So if Merritt's behind the ball, then, someone like Caldwell in the midfield, he's obviously cemented, high CBAs, as you said, time on ground. So I think he's definitely an option to bring in. And if you're only going to bring in any guy, you probably want to bring in a guy that has that last buy.
Yep, exactly. But no, speaking of Merritt, though, you know me, I've been a little bit not Merritt's a gun. He's a 110 average power, but I'm a little bit not as confident on him in the short term, at least with some of these tags. But if he's playing behind the ball, I think non-owners probably almost got away with a 94. He could have gone absolutely massive. His first quarter, I think he had 10 points. In his last quarter, he's quite quiet as well. But that second quarter, he was just the kick-ins, the marks. He was looking fantastic. And if he's behind the ball, I know that I think it was MJ and JD had that coaches panel 50 most relevant pod early in the year, and they were saying like he's averaging over 120 when he's playing behind the ball, which is obviously, as I said in the preseason, it was a cherry-picking stat, right? But if he's playing behind the ball, I think he's easily a top 4 mid, and he would be a must-have. So someone I'm definitely keeping on to see if that role does stick, because he does have Richmond post by, and if that's the case, yeah, that is going to be potentially some big scores coming there. Zorko, 90, got a bit of attention throughout the game from Essendon, but still got to an okay score in the end. Kyle Lohman, 79. I think he's still a very good option. Lack of forward rookies was a reason that I went for him this week, just for a bit of flexibility. Didn't matter because Cleary ended up being it anyway, but I think Lohman's still a good target. He's going to be about 400K. He's got a single-digit break even. He's best 22. He's locked into that side. So I think he's a very, very good option if you're looking for someone there. Levi Ashcroft, 57, Jordy. Can he go as soon as this week?
I think you could. I think probably, Friday we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to get rid of Levi, but then we got hit with a bias. We get hit with Cleary. These guys, I think though they're ahead of him to be traded out, but I think Lions play on Friday this week, so we might know. Yeah, so we might know. I doubt he's going to be dropped or anything, Levi. I think it was just a management thing because they did have a 5-day break. The Lions played on Saturday and then they played on a Thursday. So I'm thinking it's a management thing, but I guess we will have to have a look on a Friday. But he's a guy that I was probably going to look at getting rid of him at his bye. But I think if you need to jump off early, you can.
Yep, agreed. A few lower scores here. So Angus Clark, 42. I think he played a lot better than that 42. So I think he's still in that side on a wing. I think he still is showing pretty good signs there. Archer Day Wicks, if he's in the side, 41. He's a mid forward, so he could actually be a forward rookie. You do look at if he stays in the side, just not huge scoring. And then Zach Johnson, 34. So obviously subbed out as well. But what I saw on Twitter and that, Essendon fans seem pretty happy with some of the traits that he showed in the game. So I think he probably stays in there, and he is an option to downgrade to if we don't get, say, a Tom McCarthy from West Coast. If he comes in, I think he could be a pretty good shout, 230K defender mid. I think he had about 90 in the VFL on the weekend. So someone to look at. But Zach Johnson also could be an option. Moving over to Friday night, Collingwood and Hawthorn. Collingwood getting the job done by 51 points. Massive win to the Pies there. And still side bottom. Shout out to anyone that drafted him. 129, just keeps getting it done week in, week out. Nick Dacos, Jordy, obviously we brought him in the same week for that 67 and 88, and we thought, what have we done? But we've been repaid. Nick Dacos has repaid us for the last 2 weeks, and if you did jump on him in that period or just before, you would have been frustrated with those few weeks of not any tons there, but a couple of big ones in a row. Quite surprised, actually, Finn McGuinness was a sub, and no one really paid any attention to Nick for really much of the night, so he's able to do what he wants. He's got the D's on the King's birthday on Monday, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens if anyone goes to him like an Oliver, or if they use a Vine if he's back or something like that. But something to note there. But yeah, Nick Dacos, very, very good. Ned Long. How about Ned Long, Jordy? At halftime, I was on the watch along, and I was going, at halftime, I think I'm going to have to trade Ned Long out. He's been great, but I think it might be time. He's probably only going to get a 50 or a 60 from here. But he said, no Bales. That's not happening. I'm going to go massive. And he ended up with a 101 he's on 24 at halftime. Sorry. So he had, what was that? A 77 second half. Is there a case to be made that he's not trade on his buy? That he could be a hold, or is it just if he goes, you just take the score, you trade him at his buy, and you get in that premium? So it's going to be near a straight swap, right? It's going to be well over 800K. It's going to be like 830, probably 840. He's going to be pretty close to that 900K after this week. So where are you sitting with him in terms of a trade out at his buy or potentially after?
I definitely think it's definitely got me thinking. I think you could definitely hold him. He wouldn't be the worst one if you had to hold him. I think your probably priority is to get these biases out, maybe a Levi. I mean, I've got Marich, Levi, and Bias, and at the moment they're probably higher trade outs than Long. So
100%.
I guess I guess when it comes to the buy, I mean, I've got a week. I've got 2 weeks. So I guess it depends what I can do this week, and obviously teams. And Yeah, but I think you could definitely hold him if you need to, and especially if your buy allows for it. He's probably
Yeah.
been one of the picks of the season, really. Like, he's made, a lot of coaches probably jumped on him at what, 553K, and he's
A lot of coaches
almost
jumped on him on
pushing.
Anzac Day. That was
Yeah,
around his mid 500s, people, or maybe mid 600s or something like that. But he was
mid
a bit
five
cheaper, and
hundreds.
people went there mid 500s. Yep. So people jumped on him there, and he's just been fantastic. He's not, and not only is he a good fantasy player, he's also been a very good player for Collingwood. I think he's really helping that midfield. He's that, I guess, what they were probably wanting in that midfield, that bigger body to help out your Dacos and your De Goeys and guys like that are running through there. So yeah, he's just, as you say, I think he's just not a worry at all. And if you trade at the buy, great. If you need to hold him, I think it's completely fine as well. So yeah, he's getting it done for sure. Josh Dacos, 100. What a save. Another one of these big saves from the weekend. He was on 47 at three-quarter time and a 53-point last quarter to get there. It was disgusting for sure. And if you had him, you'd have been loving every minute of it. But if you didn't have him, you would have been thinking, great, that's a guy that few people have got that you might have thought you were getting a leg up with a poor score, but he ended up going very well. So shout out to him for a massive last quarter there. Dylan Moore, 87, just sort of middling score like he's been doing for a lot of the year, unfortunately. Ed Allen was one of the good picks of those mid-prices, probably the one that wasn't talked about as much. I think the other four were probably talked about a lot more, but he was pretty good. I think people worried about being the sub and everything, but 80 points, you definitely take that, and he's going to make some good, decent cash for you. John Newcomb, 63, very poor score from him. If you've got him there, he would have been a very frustrating watch, and he could be someone potentially goes at his bike, because he's definitely not done what you would have been expecting him to do, being the number one banana in the midfield. And then, yeah, Jath, hopefully people jumped off of him, but he only scored a 40. And then James Sicily, 20 points. Not subbed out, not injured, nothing. He just full game, 20 points and did nothing. Someone actually mentioned to me on one of the watch songs that said that he's actually getting to a point where he's actually going to be a very affordable D7 that people might just be able to take a punt on because he's got a couple of good matchups posed by. But I think we need to see something before we're even jumping on him and thinking about that, because he's just,
he's
just
so out of
not
form, isn't he? I even read on Twitter, like, could they drop him? Like, these are the conversations that I saw from Hawthorn fans putting the captain in the twos. I think, obviously Hawthorn as a side are out of form. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, he's going to probably get himself to what, maybe in the 600s?
Yeah, I think he'll be under 700 this week, and he's going to be dropping very, very quickly. So something just to keep an eye on, just depending how cheap he gets, but we're definitely not looking at that anytime soon. Moving over to the Gold Coast and Freo game, with Freo get the job done by 11 points. That was a very, very good win by Freo there. And Jordan Clark, 120, bit of a pod for a few people out there. He would have been very happy with a ceiling score there. Matt Rao, who a few people have gone on last couple of weeks with 13 tackles for a 117. He was very good. I'll let you have a moment to talk about your two boys, Luke Jackson, Noah Anderson, 116. They options people to bring in. I guess Jackson may post his buy, and then Noah Anderson potentially after his buy as well, because he's got, I assume, a Mullintay this week. But your thoughts on your two boys?
Yeah, I think with Jackson, with obviously Darcy's come in, but he's the main ruck. So I was watching this one closely. He starts as the main ruck, and then Darcy will come on, and Jackson will play as a midfielder. And then Jackson will go to the bench. So Darcy takes the ruck, and then Darcy will come off and Jackson will do the last bit in the ruck. So that's basically how the quarter runs. So he'll have two solid things as a ruck, and then has also the midfielder role as well. So, and obviously working well. So I think if he's going to keep that moving forward, which I think he will, I heard a lot of the commentators say, I mean, 301 and it's working. Sean Darcy had 50% game time. I think potentially we might have to look at him as a top 6 forward, Jackson. Definitely keep an eye on that.
When you were talking about Jackson just then, like the thing that I noticed with the commentators this week, this is just quickly not fantasy related, but did some of these commentators watch the game? Like the commentators in the game just got the West Coast Geelong game was saying, they didn't tag Bailey Smith until midway through the second quarter. Hoff was on him from like 2 minutes into the first quarter. Like it wasn't as tight a tag as what it should have been, and he certainly was pretty loose, but he was on him. It wasn't like he wasn't paying him any attention at all. And then in the game yesterday, when they were like about Jackson, they were like, why is one of Jackson or Darcy not down the line and being one of the forwards where they should be? But it's just like, if you guys watch the game, like Jackson's playing as a midfielder and Darcy's the ruck. Like
I heard that too. Yeah.
It baffled me this weekend. There was a lot of other comments. There were the two that came to mind. I'm just, very, very interesting. But anyway, back to Noah Anderson, back to fantasy.
Yep. I think, so Noah 116. The only thing with Noah is he had 39 disposals. So he's having to rack it up big time to get these scores. He only had the one tackle. It was obviously a really wet game. And, Matt Rao comes out with 13 tackles and Humphrey has 9 and Noah only has the one tackle. So if he had a few more tackles, it would have been a big score. But that's the only thing with Anderson, in a bit of form, but he needs to accumulate it at the moment. It's probably the only worry.
Yeah, it's a lot of these mids are doing that at the moment. There's not many of these mids that are getting mid to high 20s and still going 120s. They're needing to get like 30s, 35, 40 touches to get these big scores. So hopefully Anderson can get some of these tackles to really boost up those numbers. But 116, still a very good score. Not Andrew Brayshaw, 113. That was a good score for him. A bit the same. Probably gets the tackles, but just not the marks. But still had 3, which is fine. But 113, good score from him. Caleb Sarong with a 111, so reward those coaches that got him there. Probably makes it interesting if you trade him out or not. I think there's probably bigger issues than a Sarong in your team. I think he might start to get a few better scores. I think he's got some decent matchups post-bye, but he's probably a hold. And then same with Shea Bolton, 102. Like, I was probably looking at trading him this week with the buy, but I feel like he's probably more of a hold than a Levi Ashcroft is. I think that Shea Bolton has shown that he can still. So he played a lot more forward in this game, but still had a pretty big impact. I think there'll be games where he plays more on the mids. I just think the wet weather was probably more suited to those bigger bodied mids in there. So he's got some decent matchups post-buy as well. So he's probably a hold for me at this stage in my own team. If anyone else jumped on him there as well. Going down there, Sam Flanders kicked 3 goals to get to a 75. It's just, what has happened to him? Like, I know what's happened to him, but just still, like, seriously, just he's fallen completely off of our radar. Luke Ryan with a 60 as well. Obviously, we're just not looking at him either. And Leo Lombard, who was a rookie that a few people were pretty keen on potentially next week, and he gets subbed out on 28. So he is not an option, at least for the next week or two. Moving over to GWS and Richmond with Giants with a Callan Ward-inspired comeback. It's pretty sad seeing, obviously, Callan Ward go down, but the speech he gave at three-quarter time definitely lifted them, and they got the win in the end. So congrats to the Giants with a win there. But Lockie Whitfield with a 119. Your boy, Lockie Ash, with a 112, and Tom Green with a 112. All going well. I didn't get to see a lot of the game because obviously I was heading into the district when a lot of this game was. Was Whitfield's role back to half-back? He took some more kick-ins. And obviously Ash was pretty good as well. How did they share in this game?
Yeah, so I think I surprised you because I traded in Whitfield and Ash. I traded both of them in this week. So I traded Sheasel this week. Just was going for points, and I think with the trades, we might be able to do some more sideways. So I got both of them in. Watching the game, Whitfield was forward for the first half. So he'd start forward and then just roll up. He started the game really well. I think he got 26 in the first 5 minutes, but then he sort of slowed a bit and was just mostly getting +6s on the wing. But halfway through the third quarter, they switched him back. And obviously Giants, they played better. They got a rev up from Cal Ward. The whole last quarter, Whitfield was in defence, taking the kick-ins. I don't know, like Ash took all the kick-ins at the start of the game, but then if Whitfield takes the kick-ins, he almost then kicks it to Ash, who then gets a +6, and then he'll launch it. So I just think they're both great options. And for me, for the Giants to come back and win now and Whitfield to be back in defence, I think that is where Kingsley wants him. And I think, I guess we just need a few of these guys to come back. Like a Brent Daniels is 2 or 3 weeks away. I think there's another player that's a couple of weeks away.
Might be soon.
That will really help him cement that spot. But I think Whitfield is still going to, it was good to see him back in defence. I think they're both top 6 defenders.
Going to be a target post his bikes. He's going to be getting obviously a bit cheaper and will be at a decent enough price for people to look at jumping on. But as I said, both went well. Tom Green also went well as well with a 112. Taranto Jordox's boy, but he probably will say definitely not my boy, even though he's got him. He was on 51 points at quarter time, got the Bedford tag, and then end up on the 89. So Taran's done that a few times this year where he's gone well and then dropped off a little bit. Sam Banks, 87. If anyone jumped on him, that's a solid enough score there. Fonte with an 86. So if you had him on the bench and didn't expect him to be in your best 18, well, he got a very good score there for you. Briggs with an 82. Sims with a 69. I think he might be an option. I think he's going to, with the lack of rookies, he's a ruck forward. At least he would be some sort of cover for a Marshall this week, or a Jackson if you've got them. He's get just again, depending on what rookies we get. Like if McCarthy doesn't play, which I think he will, but if he didn't, maybe you got to look at someone like a Sims as an option. So just someone to put down there. But 69 points is pretty good there. Showed some promising signs here. Toby Green with a 62. He was disappointing. We heard that he got that ankle injury on the Friday at training from Drew Jones. So shout to Goat Fantasy there for putting that one out. But yeah, so he struggled this game. Third quarter was really good, but outside that didn't do too much, unfortunately. Caleb Smith, 59. And then O'Halloran and McCall are 58 and 55 respectively, just not getting it done as mid-prices, unfortunately. And then also Luke Trainer being subbed out tactically on 31. Looked to be playing a bit more of a wing sort of role. So he plays halfback for a lot of the year, played forward, then was on the wing. It's just interesting with him, but hopefully a lot of you moved him on. But if you didn't, he would be a trade out for sure this week. Moving over to Saturday night and Sydney and Adelaide, obviously big winners, Crows there. Pretty underwhelming fantasy game this one was. So I don't know if anyone would have had these guys in the top four scores on the ground. So Brody Grundy, 124. We know how good he is, right? But against Riley O'Brien, thought it'd be a tough game. Tom McCart with a 104. Alex Neil-Bullen with a 99. Mark Keane with a 99. Don't think many of us had those four at the top of our list pre-game in terms of scorers, but that is how it ended up. Probably just showing really how this fantasy game did go. Matt Roberts with a 98 was pretty solid. Did have a lot of time on the bench. Here, I think he's like low 70% game time compared to the high 80s, low 90s that he's been doing for a lot of the years. So I think he's still fine. We'll see how he goes against Richmond this week. And I think it's a very luxury trade if you're trading him out at round 14. But yeah, he's still ticking along some decent scores there. Angus Sheldrick was a positive though from this game, 88. If you jumped on him, you'd be very happy with his score. I think he was far from Sydney's worst player, and I certainly would think that he'll be staying there because I think a lot of other players might potentially have the chance of being dropped there. A lot of these 80s here. So John Dawson with an 86, Peatling with an 82, Heaney 81, Chad Warner 74. So a lot of underwhelming scores here. Hopefully there'll be better scores from some of these guys. I know that Warner kicked 3 behinds and only had the 1 marks. That was really what held him back from having a better score here. Sam Berry with the 66. So he wasn't, again, as good, but 66 is okay, makes a tiny bit of cash. But with the Crows winning well, I think he stays in the 22. But with 2 tough games coming up, it could be sub at any point. He plays Friday night, which is good for everyone. They'll be able to, if you've got him, you go to see if he is a sub on the Friday night. Rankin was disappointing with 63. Besides kicking the Crows' first goal, he was pretty quiet besides that. So, yeah, not too a great night from him, but I expect him to respond. Ricchetti got 65, but how about that bloody soccer? How about that soccer?
That was awesome. That was
absolutely incredible. He's got that soccer background, and I know a lot of non-Crows fans don't like him, but I guess that's what makes it as a Crows fan even better because people don't like him. So fantastic. And then, yeah, obviously Corey Warner, 29, was obviously very bad. Cleary was a starting sub. Took, I think, a lot of us by surprise. We thought Caleb Mitchell was locked in, but Cleary was a sub on 8. And then Riley Bice on 9. Jordy, is there any, like, I'm not going to be talked into it, but is there any way you could hold Bice? You know, it might be dropped. You got subbed that tactic at halftime, right? But he's got Richmond. Is it just as simple as because his break-even is going to be so high, he just has to go regardless who he plays?
I think so because, he has Richmond.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Trainer. A lot of people were like, maybe I'll hold Trainer this week with that 21, thinking he'd go back to defence, and they chucked him on the wing. I feel like Bice has been out of form for the last couple of weeks, and I feel like there's been talk about him getting dropped or sub for the last few weeks, and we've seen it. And for him to be subbed out, I wonder what Dean Cox is going to do. Like, maybe he's out of the side and it forces our hands. The thing, I know you talked about Caleb Mitchell before there, but he actually had 92% game time. He scored a 51, played defence. I didn't see he's a midfielder, but he played most of, it says that
played off half
70% half back. So I wonder if they're going to, Dean Cox, I mean, they got pumps. Are they going to, change something up? Do they put him where Bias is? And he could potentially be a downgrade option for us at 252K. I think I need to look at it. Lockout's just lifted, but I think Bias is probably going to be my number one guy to try and get out this week, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
Even
I think
Bias
got to go. So Lockout has actually lifted again, as it always does when we're recording. So he went down 52K this week, break-even's 99. I think the decision will probably be made for us. I think he will be dropped based on him being subbed out tactically. So Sydney got to make some changes because, it's certainly not going the way that they thought this year would go. So, something to be keeping on, but I think it'll be made. And I think Cleary is also a bit like that as well. He might be out of the team just because of him being subbed maybe. So just something to watch with those two there. Moving over to the 2 Sunday games, only the 7 games to get through this week, which is nice. We will go through some trade targets just quick before we finish up from the 4 teams coming off the bye. But before we do, as always, as we go on to Sunday games, the podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Game Day Squad. So you guys know what Game Day Squad's all about now. Another fantasy platform that have not just got AFL fantasy, but a multitude of other sports. So I know AFLW, when that comes around, it'll be on there as well. Obviously, AFL, NRL, basketball, Big Bash, IPL, all that good stuff. So if you guys haven't, head over to Game Day Squad. Head over to gamedaysquad.com.au and use our code BAILSDT at sign-up, and you get yourself 3 9-player common packs, which is $21 in the store, but you get it absolutely free just by using the code. Game Day Squad's free to play. It's good fun, and at least if your AFL fantasy team, like mine, is sucking, then this on Game Day Squad, it's weekly. You can change your whole squad each week. It's good fun. So if you do want to register, head over to gamedaysquad.com.au and use the code BAILSDT at sign up. Link is in the description for more details. But moving over to the final 2 Sunday games, we have Melbourne and St Kilda, with St Kilda beating Melbourne by 28 points. St Kilda's first win over St Kilda, I think it was about 7 years or something like that. So a few hoodoos were broken this week. I know that the Sydney hoodoo for the Crows was broken, and this was another one with the St Kilda hoodoo there. So that was broken, but some good scores here, particularly for the defenders of the Saints. But Wilkie top score with a 128, Brad Hill with a 120, Winhager 117, and then the pairing of Nasai Wangani Miller with a 117 and Jack Sinclair with a 112. Both were very, very good. They will both be targets after their bye for sure when they finish there. Big Max Gorn 107 was also very good. Jack Steele 105. Jordy, what did you make of Jack Steele's games? That's, I think, 5 tons in a row now that he's now done. He's seeming to find a bit of form. Obviously, McRae's not there, but the marks are up. The tackles weren't up as much because it was a pretty uncontested game. What are your thoughts on Jack Steele as a target after his bye?
Yeah, I like Jack Steele. I think I didn't catch this game because I was gigging the Savo, but I've been keeping an eye on Steele because what's been positive last couple of weeks is he's been getting these scores without the tackles. And I think a couple of weeks ago, he was getting the tackles to get the score. So I feel like if he can put that all together, if he gets a 30 possession game and can get a 10 tackle game, he's going to put out, a 130, 140, I think, soon. Obviously, McRae is coming back, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on Steele after the bye. Yeah, I think he's got a ceiling. Sure. I think he's got a ceiling score not far away, which might be helpful over the buys.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on for sure. Ryan Marshall with a 92. That's okay. Against Gorn, like 92, you take that in a tough matchup. The free kicks is what's killing Marshall at the moment. So in each of the last 3 weeks, he's gone 3, 3, and 4 against. And then even before that, he had 1 against Carlton, but then 3, 4, 3, 1, 3. So free kicks this year have actually been a bit of an issue for Ryan Marshall this year. So I'm hoping that he can turn that around because that's really sort of limiting those ceiling scores. I know he had a 158 against West Coast, but he's only gone 2 tons in his last 5, albeit with 2 really tough matchups back to back. And he's got a pretty decent run post by Western Bulldogs, Collingwood, Freo. So I think he'll get some good scores after his bye this week. You also had Petrarca 75, bit disappointing. I know Melbourne weren't great. Obviously, he had a lot of behinds here, but kicked 2 goals in this, only the 1 tackle. But at the end of the day, he's a forward, so we're not expecting him to average 100, 105 like we would as a midfielder. Max Hall, 73. If you held on to him, you're pretty happy with his score there. Toby Travali with a 67. Isaac Keeler is an option. More, I thought he was going to play behind the ball like he did last week, but played forward and kicked 3 goals. So looks like he's got that roll up forward. 66. After his bye, obviously, he's a potential target as a forward rookie. With the lack of those, might be a decent option to jump on for catching. Clayton Oliver, I half thought about him as an option this week. Obviously, Jordy asked you about him, but yeah, he had a pretty disappointing day. Only the 59 points, and I think he's a guy that I know he pumped out a 130 for you, but at his bye, I'd be trading if you still got him. He's got to go. He's just way too up and down week to week. Xavier Lindsay, 58, 3 behind, still hasn't kicked the goal. He's kicked 0 goals, 5 for his career. Hoping to kick a goal. Could be a trade out, but he's still got a couple of games for his bye. Might be a hold just for another week or two, depending on what other moves you can make. Langford, 36. That was obviously a disappointing score, so he potentially could go. Hugh Boxall, 30, but no surprise to us. He had 49% game time again, which is what he had when he played a full game a couple of weeks ago. I think it was against Carlton. I don't get what the point of playing someone for only that little game time is. I know he copped a head knock and got some like tape. It wasn't a HIA or anything, but just some blood. But still, I don't really get it. And then Matthias Filippo on 2 calf injury, not even 5 minutes into the game. St Kilda say that he'll be fine. He had a calf injury apparently during the week or a calf knock. But again, Jordy, I don't know what your thoughts
why
on that, but why play him again? A guy that's had so many injuries this year, he's already underdone as it is, and they're playing him when he's had a calf knock during the week. Like,
yeah, it says injured his calf at training this week before being subbed out 5 minutes in. Like, yeah.
He's got the week off anyway, right? Like, he's got the bye, so he gets to rest up. But he's obviously not an option to bring in. Is he a trade out for people that have got him? Because I think people are still but non-owners probably still thinking, well, if he gets going, he might be an option. But if you've got him, do you just trade him out and then you can always bring him back in if he goes better?
I think so. I've never really. I wanted to always see something first for him. I think with the midfield, and it's really hard coming off a long-term injury. I think we're expecting these guys to just come and hit the ground running, and we've seen it with Kitty Coleman and Philippou. I mean, I think Mills has been unlucky because he got suspended, but I think that you got to, with these guys, Coleman's missed 2 games with coming off a long-term injury. So I would probably trade Philippou unless he's on your bench and you fixed your bench and you can just keep him there until he comes good. But I think I'd be, if you can trade him, I think trade him, and once he gets that role, maybe the back end of the year, we might be able to trade back into him.
Yep, agreed. Moving over to the final game of the round, West Coast and Geelong. Geelong won by 43 points, but I don't actually think that told the tale of the game. West Coast were in this game for a lot of the game. I know Geelong probably should have put them away early, but West Coast really fought back well, and I thought it was actually a pretty good game of footy back and forth. But in this, Bailey Smith, a lot of people were nervous to captain him, everything like that. They were like, I'll take that. Like, I feel like they won 10 scores, and people were like, I'm not sure if Baz is going to play, but Baz was absolutely fantastic. 86 points. The disgusting part about this, Jordy, was he took a kick in. And that was just like, I was watching this and I was like, what is going on? Like, this is ridiculous. And like, he just kept racking up. And yeah, I thought he had a pretty quiet second half. He still had over 50 points. So like, it just shows how good he was in that first half. 89 points, 147, averaging well over 120. He's clearly the best fantasy player going around at the moment. And yeah, I think he's a lot of us have probably, myself included, have probably gone, do we VC in this week? He's got a tough matchup. He might get attention here. But I think he's just got to be, a few people said this for a few weeks, I think he's just got to be a permanent captain, vice captain option pretty much every week. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, he's got a good run card now. Like, next week, I believe Geelong have got another pretty good match. They got Gold Coast. We know that Woodale hasn't normally tagged. I don't even know who would go with him. Maybe just to try and go with him, but he'll be a VC next week, I think. And I think he's just getting it absolutely done. So shout out to Baz for just being an amazing pick, because I think we all took him for, not for granted, but we're all just like, we'll start him. He's so cheap. We're all bringing him in anyway, but he's just outperforming pretty much what anyone thought he would do. So yeah, just thoughts on Baz, Jordy, before we move on to the players.
Well, I'm just having a quick look at the fixture, and I think we've got Baz VC on that Saturday, and then maybe the Sunday you've got Kangaroos
Big
against
X.
West
Oh,
Coast.
Big X.
So
Lock
X is
in
going to
Big
go
X.
50. Yeah. So if Baz doesn't go 150 on Saturday, I think you got to go X. But yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, look, I had Whitfield VC and I took it because I was, 119 captain.
yeah,
I just thought, and I thought with what's happening, I just didn't know, maybe, I shouldn't doubt it. But I thought, if they're up by so many points, will they like sub him out? Or is it like, these are the things going through your head. But as you said, he wants a Brownlow and he's just on fire. And, maybe all that shin stuff was just a bit of mayo. And,
he did have obviously a longer break,
yeah,
which is obviously good. So, but yeah, he'll definitely get another 3 Brownlow votes this week. That's for sure. I wonder. Part of me wants him to get it, but then also I want
Dawson.
So
yeah.
it's going to be
maybe
interesting
a tie.
Dacos is there as well. Could we have a 2003 repeat? Dacos, Bailey Smith, and Jordan Dawson. We'll see. But no, he was fantastic. Brian Myers, 137. Like, I knew he could score well, but I didn't think he'd go 137 well. 13 marks in this. So if you jumped on him a couple of weeks ago, you'd be very, very happy with how he's gone last few weeks. Max Holmes, 108. That's good, but probably people watching the game probably slightly underwhelmed just because the last quarter is pretty invisible. I think he had like 10 points or 13 points or something. You're looking on track for a 120, but still 108, definitely, 13 points. Very, very happy with that. How about bloody Jeremy Cameron's last quarter? 61 points, kicked 4 goals to get to a 102. So if you took a chance on him, you'd be pretty happy with a save like that. That's for sure. So another one of these saves if you owned someone like that this week. Going through the other ones here. So Matt Flynn scored a 99. Obviously, we know Geelong's a good matchup for rucks. We saw just interested to hear your thoughts on potentially someone like a Liam Duggan. Scored 92. Ryan Marrick moved up the ground. I don't think he's an option yet, but just someone that's really cheap just to keep a bit of an eye on. Just if he's now going to be the main guy back there. We'll see if Tom McCarthy comes in. Obviously, Jewis took 5 kick-ins as well. Just something to keep an eye on. I'm not going to say bring him in now. Definitely don't bring him in now. I want to see a bit more, but he is cheap. Just someone to put on your
700, 732K, yeah.
Yeah, so someone
we know he's done 90s before as well.
Yeah, for sure. Tom Stewart, 73. We know that West Coast is a pretty tough matchup, but again, I saw a few times where Stewart up to swell, landed on his knee, got up, ran away. He sprinted a few times, so at least he's staying fit, which is good. I think there'll be better days for him if he can stay fit there, and he's still pretty cheap, so I still don't hate him as an option. Ryan Marrick, 63, and sub that tactically. I thought he actually played all right. Obviously, I traded him out this week, but I didn't think he did anything wrong. He's playing on a wing. But do you just think, Jordy, that because he's dropped in price a bit this week and he's going to continue to drop, you just trade him out now? And because obviously round 13, we probably don't have a huge amount of players to trade out in terms of on their buy. Would you be happy to move him on this week?
Yeah, I'm wondering why he got subbed out. Like, he's obviously moved to a wing, more of a wing, the last 2 weeks. And I thought he was actually playing all right behind the ball, but obviously they've moved him up to the wing in a slightly different role change, and now they've subbed him out. So I don't know. It just seems a bit weird to me. And it feels weird for him to get dropped because I feel like he's actually been okay over the last month or so. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, 63, I was happy with that as a pass mark this week. But yeah, I'm probably looking at him out if I can. As well as a bias. I think with Marrick, like he's 759, he might be able to get you up to a better player than because bias has dropped to 590. But yeah, definitely on my on my trade outs would be him, and bias is probably 1 and 2, I think.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I think he can definitely go for sure. And I think that might be Bo Allen was a sub, came on for just the 6 points. Hoff as well, for anyone that did jump on him, he only went to 40. I think he can probably go as well. He's just not going to be a consistent scorer back there. And also Blitzards with a 41 just isn't scoring the same as Stanley is in the main ruck there. So that's it from the games. We'll quickly touch on some trade targets because we'll chat a lot about few other things, some questions as well. I might be able to get to 1 or 2 if we get through these targets pretty quick, but we'll obviously be putting out a heap more questions. But if you do want a question answered now, chuck it in the chat at the very bottom, and we might be able to whiz through a couple right before we finish up. We'll just quickly go through some targets now. Obviously, Carlton, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide, and the Bulldogs were all on bye. So we'll start off with Carlton, just with some options you might be able to consider. So Adam Chera, Sam Walsh, Jordy. I know that Adam Chera has been has been pretty good. Obviously made a lot of cash, but he's averaging 97. He's probably not going to be a top 8. And then you've also got a Walsh who has really sort of struggled this year. Has been the number 4 mid in terms of CBAs for most of the year, averaging 94, only 2 tons. A lot of these 80s, but I don't know about you, but I just think Carlton with a week off, they've been poor. They've got to change a few things. Walsh, even Carlton fans have said they've got nothing out of Walsh this year. He's just been non-effective at all. I think something's going to change there. I think he might actually be an all right option, even though we haven't seen it as a bit of a buy play. What are your thoughts on maybe a Chera or a Walsh potentially as a target?
Yeah, I think they've got a pretty good run, Carlton. So they've got Essendon, West Coast, North. So to be honest, like it's not the worst option to go for one of these guys to get you through the buys and, your team coming out of the buys, maybe then is when we can luxury trade. So I don't mind. I'll probably go Sam Walsh only because, as you said, Chair is probably a 97 guy around that. Whereas I feel like Walsh has got a bit of upside if he can find his best form. And maybe the week off will help him. I just always worry about Walsh because of his back and the preseason and stuff. So maybe the week off will help him and coming into a nice run. I think I'd go Walsh over Chera, and I don't actually mind. I guess there's not a heap of options unless you're paying up for like a Bont, a Richards, a Sheasel, a Kennedy type. So I don't mind. I don't mind Walsh.
Yeah, he's someone I've got my eye on, particularly someone that might not have the cash to just be able to spend on a Bont this week, even though I'd love to get in a Bont. So yeah, Walsh is someone I've looked at. I don't know about you, but for me, that's probably all the options from Carlton. Like I'm looking at like TD Carlson, we've got our ruck sorted. We're probably not looking at him. Doherty is scored all right, but I'm not sure you could launch into him because he could be dropped, subbed, whatever at any point. So I think he's probably a miss. Is that probably it from Carlton? Because I can't really see anyone else other than maybe a Walsh chair if you want to go there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got like Super Huey and Cripps, but
Hewitt's dropped below 100 in a row, and he dropped the 40 odd before the buy. I don't know if we can.
So you can't
go
really
there.
go.
And Cripps is so expensive. So
yeah, it'd have to be Walsh, wouldn't it? Taking a punt and hoping he comes good.
Yep, agreed. North Melbourne. Now, I think this is where we're going to be. A few people might be shopping this week. So Big X. If you don't have him and you want a sugar hit first week up, this is the one. West Coast. It is at Hands Oval, so Bunbury. So that's where they played the preseason game. We know that Big X had like 14 tackles there, went like 120 or 130. So I think he's going to go massive. I think he went 2 150s against West Coast last year. So I think, yeah, he's a top priority if you don't have him in the rucks. I'd be saying he would be a good option if you're looking to upgrade there. Harry Sheasel. I don't know if you're trading into him. Like, could you? He's got West Coast. Are you just not trading him because he's over $1 million and he's got a role that's just changing every week? You just maybe passing on him for the time being?
Yeah, I feel like
you trade him out.
I traded him out, yeah. But we got so many trades. Like, I could trade him back in, or I'd probably just go to Bont for the extra 20K.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually realize they're playing at Hands Oval because in the preseason, Sheasel actually went massive in that game as well.
Yeah.
And he played that midfield role. So one to watch. I think I'm just going to wait a week. I'm hoping he'll come down in price, Sheasel. I'm worried about this role. Just want to see. He keeps getting shifted around. I think he's still a top 6 defender. But yeah, I think I'll just jump on when I can now after trading him.
Yeah. I did say this is where we're shopping, but there's probably like Cherry's the one and maybe Sheasel if you wanted to go there. But I think the other one that's really a really good option and one that I'm probably going to be bringing this week is Riley Hardiman. 491K, break even of 1, scored a 106 before the buy. That role looks like he's almost taken over the number 1 guy back there. So I'm a big fan of this. I think particularly for everyone that's got a buy, I think buys to him is a pretty easy trade. For me, you get that cash gen. He plays every bye week, and I think he's a guy that you just ride to the end of the buys and you upgrade him around 17. He might be a final upgrade there. Maybe not every team's in this situation where, like, if you've got one or two rookies left, maybe you don't need to go for a guy like this. But I think for people with trying to get that cash gen, people are going for like a McCall or for Berry or Sheldrick. I think Hardiman, I think DC said it last Sunday as well, that he liked Hardiman the best out of all of them, but wait till after his bye. So I think Hardiman is a very, very good option and one that I would be, I'm definitely going to be looking at for sure. Moving to Port Adelaide, I think Connor Rozee, if you don't have him, great option, obviously. I think he is someone there. Zach Butters, though, Jordy, can you jump on him this week? He's got GWS. He's got the Bedford tag, I think, is going to him. I think there's no question about that. Horn Francis might not play this week. I guess we'll see if he's back or not, but I think he'll play forward even if he is back. Butters, do you just wait a week? He's got to break into 149. Do you just wait a week until he's had that matchup, then you bring him in the week after?
Yeah, look, I've been torn on this because I don't mind going early on him because it's Zach Butters. Like we're gonna want him, and I feel like if he's the only one I can get to, like if I can't get to, I think Bont's my number one. But if I can't get to him, do I just pay up for Butters, knowing that I'm gonna want to get him the week after, but I'm paying a little bit more? But chatting to Louis, he's like, nah, do not go in because of the Bedford tag. He'll drop another 50, 60. But I don't know, like it's Butters. Like, can he push through it? It really depends what I can go to this week. If he's the best option, I think I'll still do it. But I think you can wait. It's probably smarter to wait.
Yeah, I think you have to wait. I think some people will probably go there, but I just think that you can get in the week after. He's going to be a lot closer, if not like 910, like maybe just over 900K, which is too cheap for Zach Butters. We're all going to be looking at him, right? But I think this week is not the week. But the week after. But I don't mind your thinking there with that. But what about Ollie Wines? 891, back-to-back tons. He's had more of that midfield role, obviously, since Rosie's gone to half-back and even with Horn Francis spending some time forward and obviously with the injury as well. 127 and 111. What do you think about him? Obviously, the heart thing is still potentially a risk that can pop up at any point there. But what are your thoughts on Wines as an option?
Yeah, I don't mind Wines. I think the big thing is he's had an uptick since Horn Francis has gone out. And I think Horn Francis is going to play this week. That's what we're hearing. So I think he correlates with Hornet because there's mid-time there. So, yeah, who knows? If Hornet comes out and he's still another one or two away, then I think he's a solid option. But I think Horn Francis is in. I don't mind it. He is, fairly priced, and we haven't got as much options. But there might be another guy a little bit cheaper that in the midfield for Port that you could probably look at.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on him now because that's exactly what I was going to ask you about next. Miles Bergman, 723, defender mid. Asava Radagale is going to be back this week. Obviously, I've got Cirque Thatcher there. I don't know if Josh Sin is a close return.
I think he's a test. Yeah.
He was a TBC last week, so I don't know. So he might be back. But again, as someone that is trying to get some cash and might not be able to get the top, he's someone I'm looking at. Maybe even a sideways from an Ashcroft, like just to get him in there. What are your thoughts on a Miles Bergman? Because I think, well, you're the Port man. You said to me last night you think he and other Port fans have really liked him in the midfield.
Yes. I've already got him, actually. I've held him. I held him over the buyers. So I'm a big fan. He's played a lot more midfield last couple of weeks, and I would be launching again. I'm pretty confident he's going to be in the midfield from now on. I think, our season as a Port, like we are bottom 4 at the moment. I think, it's getting a bit hard with the whole the coaching plan, and I think there's talk of Bergman leaving, and I think why not play him in the midfield and get his trade value up if he is going to leave, and if our season is cooked, which it pretty much is. Why not just leave him in the midfield and do that sort of defensive role? And maybe he goes to Tom Green or something this week. So I really like Bergman as an option.
Yeah, he's definitely someone I'm looking at this week. Final team on the bye was the Dogs. Tim English is probably one you're not looking at, more just because Big X's off the bye. You're probably looking at him as the upgrade for that extra 50K. But he's been good. He is an option there for you. But I just think there's probably other, I think Gawn is above him. I think Cherry's above him and Marshall's probably there. I think English is just above Marshall based on the first half of the year. But English is there. But the big one's the Bont, right? He's the one that everyone's looking at this week. Slight flag. They do play the Hawks. Connor Nash has gone to Bont every game they've played because Nash just matched up so well to Bont. Is do you think Bont is just a guy you've just got to bring in because we've got the 3 trades, you can get the cash to get him in? Or do you think there is a case to be made that maybe you go for someone cheaper? I guess the thing is that there's not as many guys in that 900K range that you're looking at, right? So what are your thoughts on the Bont as a target? Because I'm a big fan of him as a target still.
Yeah, I think he probably is the number one guy to get this week. They play Thursday night as well, so you'd have to lock that in. I'm not too worried about the Nash tag. I know he matches up well, but we saw Dacos go really, I think, we saw him go really well against the Hawks Friday night. And the thing about the Bont is after Hawks, he comes into Saints and Richmond and Sydney. Mm-hmm. And you really you want him for those. So,
because Jordan will go to Ed Richards. That's what he's done last couple of times. So I'm not worried about a tag there. But Bont's turned up in every game. The only game he didn't was the 79 against Giants, but he was on track for a ton anyway.
He got subbed.
So he got subbed. So he's just. I know there's been 3 scores, low tons, but as a non-owner, I feel like I've probably got away with not having some of these 120s, 130s. But that Richmond game in round 15 could be something massive. So yeah, I'm looking at him and going, I need him by round 15, I think. So, I think he's the top option if you're upgrading this week. Matt Kennedy as a forward, I think he's a good option. Is he too expensive for you? Do you think there's a few forwards that you could just get for the meantime, or do you think if you've got the money, you can go get him in?
I think you can get him. He probably is a bit like there are other guys that are value, but I don't know. At this point of the year, we want points and we want the best guys. We want the top 6, and he's top 6. I mean, Chalor is coming back this week, but he's 6.7% owned. I love that he's not highly owned, top 6 forward. I think you could, if you can't afford a Bont, I think you could launch into Kennedy.
Yeah, Ed Richards, I think he's too expensive for me. I know he's been very, very good, but he's 1.04 million, right? You got 20K, you got Bont. I doubt many people out there have got Bont already, just with his buy coming up and obviously the interrupted preseason that Bont had. But I know Ed Richards been killing it, right? He's averaging 101 for the year, and he's gone 119, 131, 103, 115 in his last few. I think he's just too expensive, but if you want to go there, I'm not going to talk you out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
Bailey Bale, I think, is an option in defence. So 9.59. I know he dropped the 64 against Geelong, but he comes up against Hawthorn, St Kilda, Richmond, Sydney, North Melbourne. Obviously, same run as we said with Bont. So I think he's probably the defender. If you're looking to upgrade, I think I'd probably go him. What do you think about Dale as an option?
Yeah, I think he's around the mark. I don't know whether he's a top 6 because what is he averaging? 94, is it? 92.7. So he's probably knocking on the door. The thing is, though, is against Richmond, we see what defenders can do. Pumped at that 150. Could he do something massive in a couple of weeks? Probably. Yeah, so definitely one to look at.
Yeah. Anyone else we haven't talked about, maybe from any of the 4 teams, or do you reckon that's probably covered all of them?
Just having a little look. There's no real rookies, is there?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I was actually looking at that. I was like, was there any rookies from these 4 teams coming off the bye? But I think that not really. I think that Hardiman's probably the one in terms of he's a bit more expensive, but coming off of the bye to make some cash, I think he's probably the one. I think we're looking at guys like your Lomans and McCarthy if he comes in, maybe Zach Johnson, Sims, maybe Keeler. Guys like that I think are probably who we're looking at as downgrade options. So I think that's probably it in terms of the targets there. So but we have gone for an hour and 5, so we will wrap up there. Apologies we didn't get to any questions tonight, but as we say, we will be doing a Q&A on Tuesday night, every Tuesday, answering all of your questions. So we're doing a heat there as well, and I'm sure we'll have the usual people, the usual 4 of us on Tuesday night. But if you do want a guaranteed answer in the meantime, or want to get involved in our Patreon, then head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Get your exclusive Q&As every Wednesday night, Thursday morning. There you get a team review for every Patreon member through the Ask Me on Q service, which Patreon members get that service for free. So if you'd like to become a Patreon member today, links in the description below, or go to patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics, or you can ask your questions for just a one-off small fee at askmeonq, spelled QU.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics if you'd like to help support the AFL Fantasy Fanatics a little bit extra. But we appreciate everyone that tunes in live, likes, comments, subscribes, anything like that. We appreciate every single one of you. But Jordy, just as we wrap up, as we always do, we'll go through what our current trade thoughts are. Obviously, lockout's lifted while we're recording, so I'm sure you've probably looked at your team and thought, what can you do this week? So what are you looking at potentially doing with your trades?
Yeah, I'm trying at the moment. My original ones before looking at bias out to Hardiman was I was looking at fixing a red dot. So I've still got Hayes and Bustinger, and I was going to go to that Tom McCarthy, hoping that he's going to get named to fix a red dot because we only have the 2 players on the bye. Then I was going to look at downgrading a Corey Warner or a Cleary to somebody. And then I was going to look at a Marriage up to a Bont. But I might, with Bias not doing so great, I might look at Bias to Hardiman, then getting maybe a Cleary or someone to a rookie. Maybe it's Caleb Mitchell, and then getting someone up to Bont, I think, at the moment, just looking quickly.
Yep, I like it. Just again, I've still got to look at it if I might bring in McCarthy, but just if I was to do trades right now as it sits here, it would be Bice to Hardiman. It would be Levi Ashcroft to Miles Bergman, and then Xavier Lindsay all the way up to Bont because I banked 350k. So I might be able to do those. Elite trades. That's a good thing about banking some cash. So I might be able to do those, but again, I've got to see, can I do the moves I want the week after with the cash, or is it better to save and go maybe a Walsh instead? Just I don't love Walsh more than Bont, but I guess we'll see.
I love those trades. Lock them in.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how we go. Could even go like a Boxall to McCarthy, right, instead of doing the Levi to Bergman trade or something. So we'll see how we go. But they're the trades I'm doing right now, and we'll see if those stick, because I do like them if I don't say so myself. But that'll wrap us up there. But Jordy, mate, thanks for jumping on, mate. Where can the people find you across the socials?
Just Jordan DeSena on X and Instagram as well.
Yep, beautiful, mate. Go and give the great man a follow. And you can find me at BAILSDT across socials, and you can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans on Twitter. I'll be back for my own team review tomorrow, and then we'll be back for our Q&A, as we always are, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. per time, answering your questions. We'll also see how Guesty and Jordox did in their rounds, if both of those two do jump on. We'll see if they're free to jump forward to answering a heap of your questions. Hope you guys had a good score, had a good weekend this week. But if you didn't, we still have 4 bye weeks to go, so hopefully you can turn it around if you had a poor this week. I know a lot of people did with a lot of poor scores out there. But if you are tuning in live, please smash a like on the video, or if you're tuning on the replay on YouTube, smash a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If I'm not mistaken, I believe are we down to the final 100? No, we got 102 subscribers before we hit 4,000. So we are very, very close. If you haven't subscribed, please do, so you can help us reach that massive goal of 4,000. That would be absolutely fantastic if we can hit that. Appreciate everyone for smashing out this season so far. And if you are tuning in on the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. That'd be very much appreciated. Always really appreciate the people that listen back to on the podcast as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on Tuesday night for our Q&A. So thanks everyone, and have a good night. See ya.